Hey guys, what's up? It's Schlaw, coming back to ya with another episode of Walks with Schlaw. And today I'm curious to learn about my sort of behavior with things and maybe my expectations for other people and why certain situations are and like end up the way they do. So for me, I have a very consistent schedule, and I mean this really applies to situations outside of that, but let's just say, I have a very consistent schedule, and you know, there shouldn't be any reason why there's any discrepancies. Um for me, I see it as rude if somebody forgets my schedule, because it's like, if it's dead consistent, you should just know it. And that's something I would. Like, if, you know, I had a friend who we were trying to schedule things and, I was close with them, I would just know. I would just remember their schedule, especially if it was like the same thing every single week, you know? And so, of course, like in response to somebody double checking with me, I'm gonna respond with like a little bit of sass, not much, because it's like they should remember, and they were rude to me, because again, when somebody is forgetful to me, it feels very rude. Now, I mean, whether it is very rude or not, I guess that will be up to GPT to calculate, I suppose. I don't really know, but either way, that's kind of, I guess, what I want to talk about. And to me, yeah, like forgetting something is probably one of the worst things a person can do. And I guess in some ways, I could make the argument it's a little bit of a hypocrisy, because, I obviously, I mean, if anything, I probably hold others to or would appreciate people to have an even better memory than I have myself, which I guess that's where it kind of gets into unfair territory. But just hear me out. It's like, I don't think it really matters as much that I might forget some things sometimes, because it's like other people don't even care. But since I care, and it's something I care about, I think there should be a level of like emotional effort. Same with how there might be certain things that, another person cares about that I don't care about. And of course, I'm still going to try to do what they want, it. And I feel like this is a very normal thing, but I'm sensing that in my generation, there is an intense level of like parasocial, is, I don't know if that's the right word, intersocial, like communicative skills that are incredibly lacking and extremely immature. And so people don't even understand that. Like, they don't understand that, yeah, like it's not always like a equal give and take, because people want different things in a friendship and in a relationship. So yeah, I mean, in my case, it may be I don't like people forgetting about things that's like been the same thing every week for multiple months. Like, there's no excuse for you not to remember at that point. Of course, it's context dependent. If something was different or was off, then of course I'm very understanding given the context. I think that's another thing I notice with people is they really can't understand context well, and they interpret a situation as like, I'm just getting mad at them. That's how they see it. When that's not the truth. The truth is, I usually, if I'm upset with someone, I have a very valid reason. It's usually based on the context of the specific situation, and that goes into my calculus when I'm calculating, okay, how upset am I, to what degree, things like that. I don't think people see that at all. They try to argue with me, but they fall flat on their face. Like, they try to make, oh, well, you don't have to be rude about that I forgot your schedule. And it's like, no, actually, given this context, it makes sense because it's something, again, you've known for multiple weeks. You've actually probably known for, basically multiple months at this point. Not like a lot of months, but, a long time. It's been like multiple consecutive weeks. It's been like the same deal. And whenever there was a change, I would have already said it, right? So in this case specifically, yeah, that warrants a little bit of sass if you're forgetting and you need to like double check with me, because to me that's hurtful that you're not taking the time or care to remember about someone who's important in your life. That's just, I don't know, that's just how I feel about that. And I think that's fair. I think it's fair and reasonable. Now, in a different context, of course I wouldn't respond like that. Let's say it's just like the first week. Yeah, of course somebody's going to be asking me for a double check. And at that point, it wouldn't be reasonable. So this is like basically the problem. I look at the history. I track what goes on. If I've known someone for multiple months or multiple years or multiple days, and get a very quantitative calculation of the person's history, the way they've acted, the way they've treated me, and that all goes into my calculation for how I'm going to respond to a person. And they're definitely going to be held accountable for that. So if there is a history of forgetfulness, then I'm not going to just let them off the hook and act like, this is like the fifth time you've forgotten about something important to me, and it would have meant a lot to me for you to remember, and I've told you it means a lot for me to remember, and you're still going on defense when you forget. I don't think so. Like I've given, my patience is high, but I'm I'm not going to do it with a smile. Does that make sense? Like, I still think that feeling of accountability is such an important thing to me. So yeah, I guess it gets tricky navigating that, right? It gets tricky to navigate the difference between like accountability and holding someone to their history. But I think the other difference too is that a lot of people may not keep like a running track record of the different things that, like, they might not even know themselves what they did like a couple weeks ago, or you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like that thing I talked about before where people, they don't even know what they can't even remember what they had yesterday to eat, let alone like who they are as a person and the way they've been treating a person. And so that becomes like a pretty complicated thing where I'm keeping track not only of myself, I understand myself as a person. I'm also keeping track of other people, holding them accountable to their actions and to their misfires and things like that. And I guess it's overbearing, even though I'm completely correct and I have every right to do that due to the awareness of it. Like it's not like I shouldn't. I don't go out of my way to do it. It just happens. Like it's I'm just observant. Like it's a shame. And it's not even a tooting my own horn thing, because this obviously has caused me a lot of problems. Being observant, being contemplative, not only self-analytical, but analytical of others around me and those who care. It's caused me problems. It's not smooth sailing at all. It's been like a terrible thing. It is a flex, but it's really not, like, it's not really that, like, everything comes with its caveats. I always say that. So when it comes to ego, it's like, if I say something good about myself, I'm always very concerned that people just write it off as, oh, you're just tooting your own horn. You just haven't. And it's like, no, I don't have an ego about myself, and I don't really think anybody does. I just think that people are coming for my neck or coming for people's neck like that all the time because they're just jealous. Like, there's such an intense jealousy to people, and then they're also like defensive and they're worried about themselves. A lot of people don't even have these kind of conversations, but again, most humans, they think so simplistically. They just think of like smart is better and dumb is worse, which is so stupid because I've already described how actually somebody being dumb in a lot of ways is generally advantageous as long as you're not too dumb. It kind of takes a lot of the like turmoil out of an existence. Like, if you think of life as that, as just picking a vessel, choosing a vessel to reside in, of course, yeah, materially I can optimize, I guess, a lot better than some people, but then it's frustrating because I can see how the system would be, and if everybody was a duplicate of me, we would have set up these systems at this point to combat a lot of the like unfairness or the injustice or anything like that. It would already be fixed, but instead I have to deal with a lot of people who like don't really vote, don't care about voting, don't care about systemic structures, or don't really think it matters. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of that general theory I have of order. It can be both good and evil, but chaos typically skews towards evil. And that's why you have humanity devolve, because over time the order is going to skew towards evil, as you know, corrupt people will gravitate towards wanting order, I think, slightly more than good people. So over time, corruption will ensue that way. Wealth will over time transfer to a smaller and smaller subset of the population just due to intellectual differences and just general over time advantages that occur with wealth. And yeah, and then when you go to chaos, it's like, yeah, generally speaking, without order, things become unfair and they don't go well. You know, you need good guidance, not, but yeah, it's, no, I've rehashed that a million times, but I actually don't really know what it has anything to do with what I'm talking about. But yeah, I think that's my main point. People are pretty horrible at like understanding context. They just go straight for the defensive. And they don't really understand context. They don't understand nuance. They don't understand how, you know, depending on the situation, stuff is different. It's not like, you know, but people just take it as every situation is like the same. So they just get like upset. If you're mad at them, they're upset, you know, and it's always a fight. And people basically just see themselves in time, I think, in the present moment. I don't think they're keeping like an accountability history of their actions and realizing, yeah, I mean, this completely makes sense that I would be treated this way given the way I've acted, you know. Instead, they're going to act like they're equal to you or something when they're not, you know, or they don't really have any right to act that way given their history, but they don't even know their history and they're acting like they got the leg up on you. They're going to be defensive towards you, you know. And that's why I just think it's not fair, because it's like, that's always how people treat me, is like, and I mean, that's got to be something too. It may be a part of my like divine potential or my path or my destiny of like, that's just my fate. My fate is people are always just going to be like extremely critical of me. And like, if I step on a feather, they're gonna like throw a fit, but then they could step on a person and like that's fine. And I'm just supposed to be endlessly patient, endlessly kind, just let everything blow by. I'm not really sure. I wonder like what the reasoning for that is, because it's true. I mean, I've been in friendships before where somebody makes a certain type of joke and everybody just ignores it, and then I make the joke and now it's like a huge problem. And it's like, why is there this strange weight where it's like nobody pays attention to me sometimes? People just blow me off and think like they just take me for granted, I guess. And then other times I say something and people act like my words have so much weight. It's so confusing. It's literally so confusing. I remember stuff too, like that I've been put through or treated by other people that they don't even remember themselves. Ways that they may have been mean to me or argued with me in an unreasonable way. And it's like a conversation they don't even remember, but, you know, throughout the day, when I guess my brain is indexing previous life events, it flashes through my brain, you know, especially when I'm communicating with them, like their little historical archive in my mind. And I know that apparently they don't even remember it. So I guess that's when it comes to like constructing a bond, whether it's a friendship or a relationship or even like a relationship with family. My bond is basically, my potential to bond with others is just like basically 1,000,000 times higher than anybody else, because really without memory, it's impossible for a bond to grow past a certain point, or at least that would be my theory about it. Is like, you know, if somebody, let's say if somebody has a brain condition where they can't really remember stuff, I would say they have a very limited capacity to have a true friendship, you know? I guess it could be possible in a nominal sense where somebody could have a friendship with a person where, yeah, I mean, all they do is just randomly play video games, randomly play games, randomly like eat food and do these like ultra basic tasks and activities that could be had with anybody. I guess you could argue somebody with a very limited memory could still maintain a relationship in that way, but I think the expressive potential for a relationship like that is just, again, it's extremely limited in comparison to somebody who could do those same actions, play the same games, go to the same restaurants, but instead have so much more of a narrative attached to it. I think it's like a totally different experience, and in terms of a development of a higher relationship. But see, what I'm realizing is a majority of people, they don't think in this optimizing kind of way, right? They just think a relationship just is what it is, and, you know, your friendship, it just is what it is. And they're not thinking about, well, how are we going to make like the greatest friendship possible, and think of all these little ways like, I should be doing this, you should be doing that, like accountability, all this stuff to build this like perfect, better and better, like seeking and searching, you know, like that's really where I get at with a lot of stuff. Like I'm always thinking about the best, and like I said, it ends up being this like hedonistic cycle half the time that, you know, I really want these like high level, like super amazing, and you know, there's nothing wrong with that. That's like the whole point, is what I'm doing is actually a really good thing, but people don't see it that way, because to a lot of people, I don't even think they think about what could be or what's better. Maybe they're not even as hypothetically inclined. You know, like a person, they don't even really think of, like, they don't think about what could be or what's better or what, they just know what is, and that might be it. I wonder what GPT is going to have to say about that. Like, how many people actually think about like what could be, what would be, and what could be better and would be better, and then what people just think in terms of what is? Because that right there is a huge limiting factor. I didn't even really think about that. I mean, I may have in a previous episode, but I think that's an interesting point to articulate at the end, because I obviously think so often and so frequently in these hypothetical scenarios that, you know, it begs the question, right? It definitely begs the question. Definitely begs the question. So, yeah, I guess to close, let's try to articulate that point. I think I'm losing my state of mind like a little bit, but we'll try to. Oh no, I kind of forget it. Yeah, that's just terrible. What was I talking about? It's people. Oh yeah. Okay, I got it. Hypothetical people, and yes, like if most people, I assume a majority percentage of humans do not really think in hypotheticals that often. They can't really envision what a system could or would be better. I don't think they really understand how governments work. I mean, even in European countries, which I assume like governmental comprehension and literacy is a little higher in those countries than in America, but I wouldn't say it's like substantially higher to the point where it's that crazy. I still think a lot of people who live in the more socialized humanitarian governments, like they probably just take it for granted. I mean, the results of those governments are like usually higher happiness scores and things like that. So, but they take that for granted. What I mean is I do think it's probably the case that most people, they just view life in their day to day. You know, it's like they wake up, go to work, and they see life is what it is. They don't think of an ability to change life. You know what I mean? Whereas I'm not thinking at all about my day to day. You know, and I'm like, my day to day, I'm shoving that way out of the way. I'm thinking about what could be, what would be. You know, if we just did this, if we just did that, like, let's try to figure things out. My comprehension of how the government works is probably just way higher. How it should work, way higher. People just have no idea what they're even like thinking or talking about half the time, I think, with politics, especially in America. And that's probably a good point to what I'm saying about my frustrations with people, is that it is true that my mindfulness is just at a different point, you know? And yeah, that's just definitely, I don't even know. That's just probably got to be it. And why people can't really contextualize things or see that it's like, okay, like, no, yeah, of course, if I was hard on you for forgetting about something in every single circumstance, that would be ridiculous. But that's not how I am. There's a context to that. People just don't understand it. They're just going to fight. They're just going to be defensive because they see it as a day-by-day, situation-by-situation basis, but they can't, and they really can't see it as situation-by-situation, you know? They can't really see it that way because it's, I don't know. They can't really figure that out, I don't think. I think they just, like I said, see situations come and just address each there. I wanted to add another thing too, like a lot of people who get depressive or like come down with depression symptoms, they just accept it as it is. Whereas when I did and have, like, I want to figure out a solution. You know, I would want to look up like, okay, well, is there data? Is there correlations with people who have those symptoms and then people like solve it? And I've talked to people before who have like a similar experience and they just never even thought any of that. And they just like accept what is as what is. So I guess that's how most humans think. I guess they're just stuck in thinking like what is what is. But anyway, it's been schlaw and now it's time to buy schlaw. So, see ya, schlaw.